there's one thing that's a complete cardinal no-no as a producer, and I know this because other people said you never, ever tape the gallery.
No, because...
Thank you, Justin.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And Adam, you did that.
Yeah, because I did it for archival reasons, and I did it very quietly and secretly, but then I thought, well, it was such a smooth, great show. I thought people might want to hear it, and I'd probably let it out of the bag earlier than the 30-year rule would normally allow. But the reason you don't do it is because it puts people off if you're recording them and you're actually trying to do your work. I mean, obviously it's different for actors, because actors are, well, they're actors, right? They're attention-grabbing people.
So perhaps if Adam had come to you beforehand and said, can I record this, what would you have said?
Absolutely under no circumstances. Like, if something had gone wrong, it would have been a stick for him to be able to beat us over the head with. So,
evidence.
Evidence.
So how long?
Never.
So how
Totally.
long after the event did you discover he had recorded it?
When he said, do you want to come to the BFI? And, I was thinking, people have already seen the episode. Do you think they might like to listen to the talkback? Well, yeah, but obviously that can't happen. But no, it can. It was that.
And so how did you react when you discovered that?
I said, can I hear it first? And then actually, the truth of it is, when we actually had it back, it was such a seamless show. And, considering everything that could have gone wrong, but nothing did. So
but you re-recorded all your stuff, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean,
we've been in ADR for months.
So, Reece and Steve, I can now move on to you in terms of, obviously you had a frenetically busy year last year in terms of, you just, at the end of the previous year, done the League reunion, then you did the shows, and you were in New York, you were doing various other shows, you were writing season 5 of Inside Number 9, and then you had to prepare for this. And this is obviously a hugely complicated thing to try and pull off. I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about where the idea of doing it live came from, and how you actually then tried to sort of put the different pieces in place.
Yeah, well, we didn't think of doing a live. It was asked of us, wasn't it? They said, well, could you do a live one? Chris Sussman said, I think.
It was a suggestion.
A suggestion of it, would you like to do a live one? And we thought no originally. We thought, well, everyone does them now. EastEnders do them. So, and, not to belittle EastEnders, but it doesn't feel as a brilliant, unique thing that people could tune in. And we didn't really think that it was we just thought it would look like a ropey version of Inside Number 9, and that was not what we would want to put out. But then we thought, well, the reason to do it, suddenly we were excited by the idea of if we did it, we make great play of the fact it was live, and if it went wrong, then suddenly that excited us. And so we set about with that premise, and that unlocked just the enthusiasm to do it at all.
And can you just give us a little bit more insight in terms of the actual story and the whole concept of the haunted studio and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, once we decided that something was going to go wrong, one of the first ideas is that we would then cut to a repeat or something that had been set up in case, because live broadcasts do go wrong.
Well, we have standby programs, yeah.
And you'd have to have a standby program. My first idea...
Do you know what the standby program for this was?
What?
Quiet Night In.
Was it?
Yeah.
So you might have seen it twice.
Yeah.
Our original idea was to have cut to an episode of Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Yes.
And that Mrs. Brown would open the door and this ghost would come in and machete her head off. And not as any comment on that, but just we just thought that would be amazing, and if we could get them to be in on the joke with us. And then we thought, hang on. This is hard enough, and so we decided to use a repeat of our own series, but put something digitally in there. And then we were just Googling stuff about what goes wrong in the recordings of live episodes, and found all these different stories of things happening and things going wrong.
And we knew of the Davro clip, of course.
We knew of the famous Davro clip, which used to be used in health and safety briefings.
Yeah, it's very much a how not to do it clip. And it didn't actually happen at Granada. We have to be fair to Granada. It actually happened at the BBC, but in Manchester. So
it's really funny. I mean, not funny, but there's a bit at the end where it comes up with where they went wrong with what ultimately happened to Bobby. And the first thing is, last minute good idea. And pillory not checked and all these things.
So then it was. I mean, I just read it happened in Manchester. Then read about the supposed haunting of Granada Studios, and thought, dare we take the reality of what's happened at Granada, albeit fudging it slightly with the Bobby Davro clip, because we were desperate to use that, and just to create something that might be that people could then go and Google. We were excited that
And there
a
had
lot of
been
that
the
stuff
Most
is out
Haunted,
there.
hadn't they?
The Most Haunted was real, and we just made up this. From the Most Haunted, when they talk about this member of crew.
Is that the heart attack? A member of crew, yes, that's right.
A member of crew. We created Alan Starr, and the hard thing was really you had no way of driving a normal narrative, and this was never a normal narrative show because it was like a mosaic of different archive clips, of backstage stuff, of...
But all heading in the same direction, though, Steve.
Well, yeah, it's hidden. There is a bit of a narrative which is hidden in this collection of clips, so... It was a real challenge, but really exciting at the same time.
And obviously you were including this moment where you're being yourselves and you're referring to Adam and you're referring to Plowman and you've got Stephanie Colin there. And I guess the big thing about this is that it could have taken a very kind of postmodern twist if actually something really had gone wrong. And I guess, so how did you kind of prepare for the fact that you're showing something going wrong that actually really could go wrong because it really is live, if that makes sense?
Well, in a funny way, that sort of... Because it was all about it going wrong and getting that right, the reality of actually it really going wrong didn't ever really rear its head as a phantom. I think there was one point when we were right near the point when it was going to go out, and that suddenly there was a question mark over, and it was what you were saying, Adam. They've asked what's going to happen if it goes wrong? What would play in? And suddenly we had to decide, didn't we?
Well,
I think it was.
Well, I
Quiet
thought
Night
if we
In.
just showed a bit of Quiet Night In, it would just look a bit random, but it would at least tie in with the rest of the show if we got to 9 minutes in. So that seemed like quite a good thing to have standing by.
We also did have the dress rehearsal.
We had the dress rehearsal as well.
clipped
you would
up
play
into
that if it
scenes.
went wrong, like
yeah,
we
we would
put
have
in the
jumped
programme,
to the
yeah.
next scene. So there was because once we'd gone wrong, we wouldn't ever have wanted the BBC then to take us back off air, would we?
No.
Because then it would have.
It would have had to have gone catastrophically wrong
Yeah.
for us to have to play in a Quiet Night In for real.
Yeah.
The hardest thing was keeping it on time. I think that was the sort of the challenge, and as you could hear with the, because if you do things live, I think the tendency is to gabble, and it gets quicker, and you finish too early. So there was this slight concertinaing of the scenes, and we were told, and I had to speed up quite quickly in that scene when I talk to Stephanie about Black Mirror, and she did it quick as well, so we were back on time again suddenly. So that was fine.
And presumably one of the biggest risks of all is actually just lose the audience because they genuinely think there is a mistake.
Yeah.
But only 20% of the audience.
I mean, how brilliant is it? And I was hoping what I had planned and hoped would happen is that, you might begin to think when the sound goes, this is all part of it. But then when you stay with the repeat of Quiet Night In for so long, longer than you would normally dare to do it, that's when I thought people will think, it really has, it's gone wrong, turn off. And happily, a fifth of the audience did. So I was proud because I thought it must have felt real. It must have finally felt like it was. It really has gone.
And that link with Twitter as well. I mean, obviously Twitter was alight at that point with people confused, bemused, and then of course your reaction to it saying about, well, of course we do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it all feeds that authenticity.
Well, that became
doesn't it?
part of the narrative in a way, in that the audience's response to the show, whether they switched off, whether they were told by friends to switch back on again, whether they abandoned it and only heard a week later, whether they still never know that it exists, that is all part of the story. And that is really tremendously exciting. And in an age of streaming television, we did something that can only be done live at BBC Two at 10 o'clock at that moment, and that felt really exciting to us.
And for those of us who don't sort of speak gallery speak, can you tell us what grams are?
Yes, it's short for gramophone record operator.
So all the in normal, like all the sound effects, every phone ring, every conversation on the phone with Steve that Stephanie had, they're all the grams that get played in. Yeah.
I thought you were baking in the gallery and you were just measuring out your ingredients.
Multitasking.
Was there anything when you were setting this up that you just couldn't do because either from
Yeah,
live
the-
TV
the-
it wouldn't work out, or from
The massive thing that went wrong was that we weren't at Granada.
Because we were to begin with,
We
weren't
were, yeah. So we'd done a recce there and everything. We were good to go, and it was great because we're about to start redeveloping the studios, the old studios where we'd actually shot the League of Gentlemen Christmas specials. It's where we'd put the Denton set there. And what was the other one? What was the other set we did there? It was just the Dentons, wasn't it?
The local shop flat.
What happened was that they were going to redevelop it. They were going to dig up the car park, which is where all the bodies were buried in this enormous thing. And I was thinking, well, we can make something of that. We can go there, this abandoned TV studio, given the shortage of studio space, that seemed realistic. And we'd do a live OB from the abandoned Granada studios. And that all felt like it would fit in. And then 4 weeks before transmission, we got a call from Granada saying, oh, they've dug it up a bit early, and we don't think you can get your trucks into the studio. So Claire was left with the problem of going around all of the remaining studios that we could find and to choose a replacement studio.
And one of the things about, I'm thinking for the BAFTA award, the eligibility criteria
Very
is
strict.
that you have to have 70% of it live.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And how much did you achieve?
It depends how you measure it, really.
69.9.
Yeah, I mean, if you stretch a point and you take, because Christian Henson, our amazing composer, is playing live music actually over quite a lot of the VT. So if you count that and you count all of the stuff we were actually doing live on the night, it's just under 70%. So
Like
we're
69.5 wasn't it?
yeah, something. Yeah, we're about 25 seconds short, I think.
If only you'd known that before.
What would we have done? I mean, there wasn't really anything we
No.
could have done live.
You could have let Stephanie slow down and not do her big speech like she was commentating on the Grand National.
Yeah, yeah, but then the BBC Two would have taken us off the air early, so
Missed the end, yeah.
it's the end.
Before we open up to the audience, just Babs, from your point of view, as somebody who is very experienced at directing, kind of like Would I Lie to You, and a lot of those kind of panel kind of shows that kind of come out as if they're sort of live. Doing something like this is very different. But I mean, did it feel very different, or did you just have to just keep your mind focused as if it was just the same sort of concept? If that makes sense.
Well, I suppose this had lots of different elements to it. So you had the sitcom directing to bring to it, which is one style, and then you had the backstage elements, which was lots of hot heads and like the roaming cameras are the like fixed points, which is another thing. Plus the special effects loads of the special effects were live. So yes, it did bring lots of different elements together.
Plus
and
location
being live.
filming
Yeah.
and video effects and things which all had to be prepared before the day. So there was a lot to it.
So how long
Yeah.
did you actually have at the studio itself?
Well, we were really lucky on this production, I think, in that Reece and Steve were really keen that we had time to play when we got to the studio, so that we hadn't made all our decisions in the rehearsal room. So we had about 3 days in studio, which is a real luxury today to have that, which was great. So we could play with where the ghosts were being placed and how exactly those backstage elements were working. And most of the sitcom scenes, what you expected the main story to be, were fixed in the rehearsal room, I'd say. But yeah, so it was a unique and a really lucky to get the opportunity to come and work on a project, because I don't think they come around very often. It was really, really special.
And season 5 is in the bag.
Yeah.
You finished it, written, done,
Speaking of
delivered.
things in bags, I just thought you would like to see. There he is.
There's my head.
There he is.
Your hair.
The hair, they couldn't afford the hair. It got took back as a wig, but that's it.
One of the directors you're using in season 5 is a young up-and-coming director, Steve Pemberton.
He is, yes.
How is it working with him, Reece?
Oh, it's very good. I mean, he's very much an actor's director. So I was getting lots of notes. No, it's great. I mean, I think season 5 will be good. It's still in the post-production, so it's been put together now. But yeah, we're excited. I think it'll be good.
We haven't really up to this point, no, because we seem to have got into this sort of 30-minute format, which suits these stories quite well. So you get an awful lot of storytelling, and it feels like very rich, but you've only been watching it for 30 minutes. Doing a film is a very different structure, and the getting the funding to do a film is very, very difficult and very time-consuming. So I wouldn't rule it out, but at the moment we're just focusing on doing 6 episodes a year, because that is 2 films.
Well, obviously we know it's great, Ghostwatch, and we loved it, but it wasn't, I think if anything, the homage to Ghostwatch was it being reputedly live. I mean, the funny thing
Ghostwatch wasn't, of course.
But Ghostwatch wasn't, of course. People think Ghostwatch was this brilliant prank, but Ghostwatch went out as Ghostwatch, this drama written by Stephen Volk. I think people must have arrived a minute in and not seen the beginning. In fact, it was a written thing, and thought it was this amazing live event that looked like a precursor to Most Haunted, which is the genius of Ghostwatch. But we were trying to play a different trick where we went the full bells and whistles of announcing this. We were doing this live thing, and we had lots of press saying, "Do you think what will happen if it goes wrong?" And we would go, we hope it won't go wrong, and knowing it would, of course. But Pipes, obviously you can't beat Pipes, but certainly some of the subliminal ways that they hid him in Ghostwatch were very much in our minds when we were thinking, where will we place our ghosts in this? We're trying to do it sort of subtly, and then on a repeated view you could catch some more. There's one in here that I'm sure no one has spotted, which I'm very pleased about.
You're not going to share us that?
Not going to tell you where, no, of course not.
Because we were on tour when we were preparing it, so we told Mark and Jeremy on the tour bus what we were doing, and we said to Mark, because we do have a league WhatsApp group, that's a real thing, and we told him we were going to make this comment. He said, "Oh, do you want me to actually message you?" I was like, "No, what's the point of a private message coming in at that exact time?" But he was very nice that he offered. But apart from that, we didn't want to ruin it for anyone. Didn't tell anyone, didn't tell our families, didn't tell anyone at all. And in fact, where we lived, we had a power cut, so poor Alison and Adam, who were here tonight, missed the beginning of it because the actual TV went off. And then when they got it on, they were like, "Oh, thank God," and then the sound went off. So that's part of the narrative, I think, is not knowing what's coming.
I was sitting in the gallery, just basically leaning back and then out of the corner of my eye watching my phone, which was going off with text message after text message of condolence.
And I had my phone on because I had to do my live tweet, and Darren Brown texted me going, "Oh my God, it's so fucking upsetting for you." Well, that was brilliant, because I thought this is the kind of thing he would do, and we got it. No, someone did that. We don't know anything about that. We died. Yeah, we died on Wikipedia, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. Stephanie Cole.
Electrocuted. No, she was. Her throat was cut. Yeah, you were electrocuted.
Yes, throat was cut. No, we loved that. That was nothing to do with us. But again, that's part of the narrative of the show now. And I've taken screenshots of that because they got changed back again. Miserable Wikipedia. But very, very exciting that people, because it was an interactive thing. So that's exciting.
It was really frightening. I found it much more frightening than anything I've ever done. As Reverend Neil, I realised the teacup was shaking. As I was doing it, I thought, I've got to put that down. And it genuinely, the adrenaline build-up to it going out live was palpable and quite frightening.
And you've got a lot of business to do in that first scene, haven't you?
Yeah, there was cracking eggs, putting the radio on, and sometimes that radio wouldn't go on properly, or I'd push it off, or there was an awful lot to do. And I think when you're doing a live show, for example, League of Gentlemen, if something goes wrong, you incorporate that into the action, and you get the audience to acknowledge it. We desperately didn't want anything to go wrong that we hadn't planned to go wrong, and so from that point of view, really, really terrifying and nerve-wracking. And that countdown, I mean, you could all probably feel that tension. We were hearing all that, 2 minutes to air, 90 seconds, and then 10, 9, 8, and then the tap on the shoulder and walking out was absolutely one of the scariest things I've done. But having said that, at the end, when it finished and we called, that's a wrap, literally punched the air with how exciting it had been. It was really a lot of adrenaline all the way through.
There were a few people who afterwards refused to believe that the show was live. That's your fault, because you were too good.
And most of the questions afterwards were, so what was live? How, and I think lots of people thought the special effects must have been pre-recorded elements, that we wouldn't have risked doing those live. So most of the questions afterwards, people in the industry would say, tell me which bits were live and which bits were pre-recorded.
There were people in the industry that were absolutely convinced that it was entirely recorded.
Yeah.
I definitely saw comments from people.
And I think early doors we were really keen to anything that could be done live, we were going to try, you know, that was our aim, was to do everything live that we could.
There was one thing that I think we thought we might do live, which was the night vision thing.
At the very end, yeah.
That we'd actually pre-recorded a version of that in case we couldn't get it to work on the night. But actually what we ended up pre-recording was so oddly convincing as a piece of live TV that we just thought we'd use it with all the interference and everything. And I think that was...
One of the hardest bits in it at all was the head cam on my thing, because that was live, and I was...
Yeah.
I couldn't tell what I was beaming out to the world, but I just
Rogue
had to hope.
cameraman.
I did it a few times and sort of got the sense of, and trying to reveal that head and then but not see Steve creep in for the jump scare. You know, that took a bit of skill really, and and I did it.
Did you audition for Peep Show?